Hey guys, it's Mel here from simplylive.com.au. It's a really monumental day for me here today, and I just wanted to give you an update. It might be a bit long, but I hope you'll stay for the duration and get something out of it. Um, as of today, it's 2 years since I left Australia and changed my life up completely and started this crazy, nomadic, beautiful life that I live. And I just wanted to share a few reflections on that, on how many things have changed, and what's happened with me. And there's so much to tell, and I've been trying to think about everything that's happened and where I go from here and how much has changed with me in my life, and just the way I think. And and so I've actually written some things down. So you'll have to bear with me because I'm actually going to look and read. It's probably the first time I've actually tried to read something into the video. It's not my preferred thing. I prefer to speak off the cuff, but I just knew that I'd forget half the things I wanted to say. So bear with me while I do a little bit of reading today as well. So yeah, I've been living now 2 years this nomadic life, some would say a gypsy life, in Europe. And it's just been such an epic journey, and I know there's just so much to come. And there's been some recent developments which I know are going to change the way I see things and the way it's going to change my life in the future as well. I'm not sure what that looks like at the moment, but we'll play it by ear and see how it goes. All I know is that I want to keep traveling. I want to keep the elements, the core elements of what I see of my life, the minimalist side of things, and living this rich, full, abundant life because of the fact I have so few things. I mean, so many people see minimalism as something bare and sparse and cold and clinical, but it's stripping away all of those possessions and things that take up so much of your time and clutter and are a distraction from the really important things in my view, and that's our connection with people and the planet and all of the amazing things and having the time to live such a great adventure. And so, yeah, that's certainly been a massive part that I want to retain. I still want to travel, I still want to meet people, I still want to connect, and I want to show people that there are many ways to live your life. Not everybody wants to live like I do, I understand that, but you can pluck little bits out of it. And I think for many people, what I see as I travel is this incredible frustration with their lives. I mean, there's so many people who are depressed and anxious, and we have so many incredible amounts of suicide. It breaks my heart, depression, and they feel trapped. Even if they're not in that quite state, people feeling trapped because they say, well, we do what we do, if only there was a way to do it. And there is. It may not bring along the choices that you want, and you may decide not to, but there are options and there are choices. And I hope that I can show you and can continue to show you that I live this way with very little money, and doing all sorts of things. And I'm sure that's going to change and evolve over time. And it's up to you. You do have the choice. It's up to you whether you choose to do that or not. And I think that's empowering. I hope that's empowering for many people, whatever they decide to do. Um, uh, 2 years, wow. Adventure, challenge, so many beautiful people, so many challenging people that I've had to learn to deal with. Living in houses, apartments, hostels, couch surfing, B&Bs, pet sits, beautiful lush green countryside, forests, a gazillion beaches. I love the beach, so I've spent a lot of time in a million beaches, mountains, architectural designs and delights and history, cities, towns, so much luggage, planes, trains, cars, buses, and more buses. And of course, all the animals that I've had to look after, all the beautiful animals, big dogs, little dogs, aggressive dogs, friendly, cuddly dogs, puppies through to old dogs with nappies, cats, kittens, um, rescue animals, lots of rescue animals, all the beautiful, fully trained and domesticated, highly snuggly animals, just so many different things. More recently, a goat, chickens, ducks, fish, birds, chameleons, even a snake. Not that I had to do much with a snake. And I'm still desperate to pet sit a bunny rabbit. If anybody knows someone who needs a bunny rabbit, pick me, pick me. Of course, not everything's been perfect. I've had to deal with a range of experiences in the moment as best that I could. And I want to talk about a little bit more about how I've changed, how those experiences have changed me, both good and bad, in the past 2 years. And also, a really big thing I've noticed is that the way I view the world is actually quite a lot different in the second year of my travels versus the first. And I want to talk about that a little bit today as well. I've really been truly grateful for the incredible diversity of people who've been a part of my life in the past 2 years. Many have made a really big impact on me, and some of them just from random conversations in a coffee shop that I met for 15 minutes or half an hour or a few hours. Others have just stayed in my life and created a beautiful impact, and I'm still in contact with them regularly, and I have chats and all of those things, and they've been a gorgeous part of my life as I continue on doing what I do, which has largely been a solo life. Being a bit closer to my son and his girlfriend, my son Dylan, in Lisbon, being able to see him perform much more regularly and just pop in and spend a few days here and there has been amazing. And then there's also been this little factor of me meeting a beautiful man in Portugal this year, and falling in love, and that's added a whole different dimension to my experiences for this year. And everything moving forward from here, I'm sure, is going to be affected by that in some way as well. So bring it on. Let's just see where that's gonna lead as well. Um, so what's changed for me? There's so much been changed in my personality, the way I live, my values since leaving Australia 2 years ago. It's been an evolution, and I think a lot of people kind of look at what I'm doing and go, I could never do that, because they think that you jump from here to here in one hit, and it's not the case. It's an evolution, and it's been changing, and it's still evolving, and I'm excited to think what's going to happen over the next 2 years. I'm now even more in love with the way I live my life and what I believe now, and I think it's going to completely continue to change. I don't ever say that this is the way I'm going to live forever. I don't ever say that this is it for me. This is what will be my life forever. It feels that way now, but I know that everything just keeps changing, and I can't have imagined this life 2 years ago. So how can I possibly project what I think will happen in the next two? But I feel that there's been a very big marked difference in the second year versus the first year. After the first year, I went back to Australia. I finalised a lot of my financial affairs. I got to see more of my family, and I got to step back into the way that most of my friends and family live their life, which they enjoy, and realise that it's not for me. It really is, in seeing it firsthand, it's not for me. And I've accepted that it's not just a long holiday either. It's the way I live my life, at least for now. So it changes my view. I kind of come back and just kind of settled into it straight away and went, okay, this is the way it is now. Cool. So for the stuff that's evolved, big and small, first of all, I now drink short blacks or espressos when I used to drink cappuccinos. And I love my milky coffees, and I've always loved my milky coffees, and I tried to give it up many times for my health reasons, but just simply couldn't. I just love my cappuccinos, and maybe I still do. But the thing is that in Portugal and Spain, they use this horrible UHT milk, sometimes even powdered milk, and it's horrible, and I couldn't stand it. And so I just drank coffee out of a desperation of getting my coffee fix, and have come to enjoy it. So I drink milk without coffee now. One day, hopefully, I'll get to try cappuccino when I get back to maybe Italy or somewhere which has better milk, and see if I still like it. But for now, it's short blacks, espressos. I'm much more seemingly relaxed about my own personal security. It's rare that I give it a conscious thought anymore about my personal security, whether I'm safe about doing what I do day or night, and I go about catching night buses, doing what I wish. Um, I'm certainly more consciously vigilant in places where I perceive there is more danger, and that is high risk areas like buses and train terminals, and high tourist zones when you're in a very big tourist area, especially amongst crowds. Pickpockets and thieves are looking for things, and there's more potential for danger to me in thwarting that. But apart from that, I generally don't take that much notice. I tend to realise though that I've become much more subconsciously vigilant, that I don't have to think about it, and there's a lot of my habits that just automatically cater to keeping myself safe and my possessions safe. And I have a much broader expanded awareness, a wider expanded awareness, which I'll talk about in a second. And I spot many of the things and people that who accompany me don't notice. And I think that it's this subconscious habits that I've got into of expanded awareness, which has made my life so much better in many ways in general, has allowed me to keep myself safe in more ways. And that has dramatically increased this second year over the first. In terms of the expanded awareness, what that means is that I'm always looking outside of my into my peripheral vision. So I might be walking here, focusing on where I'm going, but I'm very aware of what's going on around me. I've had many people notice this year that I note a lot of things that they were walking along with me and didn't notice. So sounds that I hear that they didn't hear. I notice more things like the flowers, the things around me, beautiful buildings, little sights, and I see it all the time. And it's very regularly for me to be walking around, walking down the street, and suddenly I'll just turn to look what's happening behind me, to see a different perspective, a different view of the street I just walked down, to see what happened behind me. I pick up more details when I'm looking at other people's photos and images, even on Facebook and stuff like that. I notice little details of not just looking at them, but what is in the photo behind them, the stuff behind it. I tune in better to the needs of the animals that I'm with. I can sense, what's going on for them far better than I could before, whether they're happy or sad, whether they need more food or what's going on. I'm constantly scanning the voices of the people around me, trying to tune into their voices, trying to understand the language, and also noticing that I also keep scanning for English voices, that of people I can go, oh, hi, and say hello, because then I get to speak to someone in my own language for a little bit and to connect with maybe an Australian, particularly an Australian, but any other English speaking people as well. I also really am tuned into tourists that I see looking a little bit lost or whatever, and offering assistance because I know what it's like. I notice the residents in their environment, and I'm always looking at what they're doing in their gardens and trying to learn about the everyday ways that they are doing things and ways I can connect with them even if I don't understand the language. A biggie for me is that I now tend to get out of bed at 8 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock. I still usually wake up at 5:30 to 6:30, especially during summertime. But there's really nothing I can do for a few hours in places like Spain and Portugal. Nothing is awake. And if I'm sharing a house or accommodation with someone, I don't want to wake up the whole household by getting up and having breakfast and doing things. So I stay in bed, I meditate usually for half an hour. I'll check Facebook, I'll check in with some friends, I'll do a few things on my phone that I can do. And that's really changed a lot since year one, because in year one I was still really trying to keep in with a lot of the habits and styles I had in Australia. I love getting up early, it's a joyous part of my day. And so I was really frustrated when I couldn't do that and trying to find ways I could continue to do it. But now I'm accepting that I just possibly can't do that in the same ways. To some degrees I can, and some degrees I can't, and so I have to look at ways that continues to be workable for me in the long term. I tend to stay in bed rather than exercise in the morning. And the fact that I actually don't get around to exercising until later, I actually don't like about that. So I'm still trying to juggle that and find the best way around it, because once that morning time has gone for me, I tend to just not get around to it later. But I do love the other things I do instead, particularly the meditation. I often go to sleep at 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning, when I used to sleep by 9:30 or 10, and I would actually still prefer to be in bed by 10. But the realities of life here in southern Portugal and southern Spain and those sorts of areas is that, if you can't get into that habit, because if you go into a pet sit and someone wants to show you around, they won't even have dinner until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So even though I have the options when I'm living by myself, if I'm in the habit of having dinner at 7 and 8 o'clock, then it becomes a real issue for me of how do I manage till dinner time at 9 or 10, or if I want to catch up with friends. So I've just had to accept that's what they do here, and I'm going to have to juggle a little bit. And there's so many people who, if they want to organise a pet sit, want to do it after dinner, which is after 10 o'clock at night. And you're going, oh gosh, you know, how am I going to stay awake? So I've had to just deal with that and adjust my life backwards a bit time-wise. Food is another big thing. I still predominantly eat vastly healthy food most of the time. But what food I'm actually eating varies depending on where I am and what I can get. You know, I can go weeks without eating any meat, which I find is very important for me because it's either really expensive or poor quality, and it's just not available where I am. And then I'll go to the next place, and because I haven't had it for a while, I'll eat red meat every night. So I've had to redefine my whole concept of living a balanced, healthy life and what I can do to make that continue. So, you know, for me in the past, exercising meant that balance in my week meant that I mixed up a bit of high intensity interval training with some yoga, with some rest days, with doing some body weight movement, Pilates, and just trying to keep a balance over each week. Now I try and think about it in terms of balance over a 3 or 6 month period. You know, if I can access a gym, suddenly I'll go to the gym every day for 6 days and do strength training. And if I can get my hands on kettlebells, I'll just do them every single night while I have them because they're so hard to find. And then I can go a few weeks of just doing body weight at home, or some days I'm in an area where I'm wanting to sightsee a lot, and so I'll walk 15 to 25 Ks a day, and I accept that as my exercise. And then I'll have access to a bike, and so I'll ride around every day for a week to see things on a bicycle and make the most of that. Every now and then I fit in some runs, which I like to do, but I don't always get around to it. I'll do lots of body weight, and then other weeks I really do nothing. Like I've just had a few weeks where really I've done nothing, but still my nothing requires me to drag around my luggage, which probably is a total of around 30 kilos of luggage. And that includes up and down stairs, cobblestone roads, throwing it onto the buses. And then I try and do things in my everyday as much as I can. So I always, unless I've got my luggage on me, I always choose the stairs over the escalators, even at the end of a long and tiring day. I run upstairs as much as I can. So I don't actually progress my fitness further. I don't ever get more fit, I don't think, these days. And in some aspects, I'm losing a little bit of fitness in some ways, and I need to up that a bit again. But still, like this last few days, I just went out running, and I haven't been running for, I don't know, I can't even remember. Like, I honestly don't know. 3 months, 6 months, I don't know. But you know, I was surprised that I could still run 3 or 4 Ks without stopping, and then I'd stop, walk, and run a bit further, and going, okay, I don't feel too bad. And I'm a little bit sore today, but not too bad. So it surprises me. And the same with food. You know, I have to do this balance thing. In so many places here, you know, what you can get is a lot of bread. And I don't normally eat a lot of bread, but the quality of their bread is much better here. And I'm having to do a lot of travel and sitting on buses. It's really hard to eat things like salads. So I'll take bread, you know, banana sandwiches and chicken sandwiches and rolls with really healthy bread. And I eat too much bread and I don't enjoy doing so. And then I'll get to my location and I won't eat bread for weeks or months and clean that back out of me. Same with cheese, you know, sometimes I eat a lot of bread and cheese to get me through. You know, I'll eat pineapple with breakfast every single morning for months, and then I go to the next town and they've got more stone fruit and I'll eat some of that. So, you know, if I'm in a house with a blender, I'll have a lot of my green smoothies that I love, and then I'll go a month without being able to get them at all. So you just have to, it's not ideal from a nutrition perspective, I understand that, but it's better to have some balance than throwing it out the door altogether, and I do what I can do. In, I suppose, relation to that, I've also learned to be very, very flexible and not get too caught up with this desperation of being healthy or balanced or whatever, and to go with the flow of the people that I meet and the balance of the activities and what's on offer and what the weather's permitting. You know, I came here and I'm in this beautiful beachside town and I was dying to get to the beach because I've been away for a month, and the weather just hasn't been good for me. So I'm going, okay, you know, I'm not going to get the opportunity to do that, so I'm going to do lots of things on my computer. I'm going to meditate, I'm going to finish off courses, I'm going to do some videos, and then I'll go to the beach, and I feel no guilt whatsoever at laying on a beach every single day and doing very little else for weeks. That's my balance. And I just make the most of that and do what I can do when I can do. And I don't get stressed about it. I just go, okay, that's annoying. Okay, move on. What am I going to do today? And it always turns out amazing. Some days I'll do nothing much throughout the day, and other days I'll act like a frantic tourist sightseeing because I'm just in one place for a few days. So, it's I have lots of social noise, activity, people connecting time, and then other times when I can just be out in the country for 2 weeks and not see human life at all, and that's all good. Uh, I'm even more mega aware of my plastic consumption, and I'm aware as a traveller, sometimes I feel in some aspects I use more than I would like and more than other people. But obviously, I've got to keep things moving for travel. So if I've got liquids in my travel, I don't need it to go through my whole baggage, especially when my most important documents are in it. So I'd use a few more plastic bags that I would like, but I also use them in things. I use things like the vegetable bags. There's still some places here where you have to weigh your own bag, your own vegetables, and put it into a plastic bag. And so I have those, and I just reuse them as much as I can. I also, much to the shop assistant's amusement, if I have to do that weighing thing, I will weigh 3 or 4 different types of vegetables individually and put them all into one bag, and then I put 4 different stickers on the one bag, and they look at me kind of strangely, but I don't care. That means I use a little bit less. I also still use disposable plastic water bottles like this one, which I don't love. But honestly, I am so tight for baggage space. Even carrying a little light water bottle is a challenge for me. I do have a cup that I reuse for as a plastic dish bowl, dinner bowl, whole heaps of things that I carry with me as a non-reusable. But this water bottle will stay with me for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And when it gets to a point where it's really grotty from a water point of view, I'll use it to put my green smoothies in, and I'll use it for a few more days like that as much as I can, and use that. So, uh, you know, you've got to do what you can do. But I think too, I'd like to think that my environmental footprint overall is much less than just about anybody else's because of the other things. I have almost no environmental footprint in my big ticket items and my life. I live in with assets that other people are not using most of the time. So this house would be empty if I wasn't in it, and I'm in it. So it's using resources that are already here. I book space on a bus, and it means that that bus was going from A to B anyway, whether I'm on it or not. So, I'm not adding extra footprint from that. I don't have a car. I don't have furniture. I don't have white goods. I'm just using the resources of other people that they're not using at this particular time. And even down to food. Most hosts, when they go away for a holiday, will still have perishable food in their fridge when they leave, and they're going to throw it out. I say leave it there and I'll eat it. So it's not being wasted, and I'm using a lot of that. So I hope that my consumption is far down, environmental footprint is much down overall. So there's some things though that I really dramatically noticed the difference between the second year and the first. It's felt very different, and that's even before meeting a man and having that element brought into my life. I've just kind of accepted that this is what the way my life is now. It's not a holiday. It's the way it is, and it may change, and it's still evolving, and it's different. But this is, it's living in one place is not the way I live anymore, and I'm not just on a long holiday and going to go back into that at this stage at least. It's felt really much more natural, more comfortable, more easy. There's not many things that faze me anymore, even though I haven't really gone into some very adventuresome places and done some adventurous things that I think that I'm now ready to move on to do. So we'll see. I'm much more relaxed in places like hostels. I used to be quite almost paranoid about making sure that my luggage was locked up. And if they didn't have a locker, I was quite stressed about it that someone could just walk out with my luggage. Now I'm much more relaxed about that. It's all good. I'm more used to hand washing clothes on the run and just leaving them draped all over my hostel to dry. I'm used to hanging my towels on the side of the beds in hostels if they're bunks, so that A, they dry, but also so that I can have a little bit more privacy or block out the light from people coming and going in hostels. I tolerate the noise better. I'm used to much more dirt, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and living in dirtier environments, different pillows, different beddings. And I enjoy meeting the range of people that I meet in hostels, and hearing about their lives, especially the long-term travellers and in shared accommodation. I actually really look forward to it. I'm more frustrated now with not being able to speak the language of the country that I'm in. It's okay when you're kind of acting as tourist, and I was just recently in France for 2 weeks, and I was there as tourist. And you're just trying to, I'm doing more of the touristy things, sightseeing and having to order a coffee and getting my ticket, and that doesn't worry me so much. But I really prefer to have more knowledge of the language so I can talk to the local people. And for me, it's so much more about understanding the culture and the everyday lives of the people. And you can't understand that well unless you speak their language to talk at a more deeper level. I was lucky in France. I had an amazing host there that I really wanted to get to know, and he hardly had any English, and I don't have French. And we happened to have a neighbour that did a bit of interpreting for us, and I wish I could have done more. And I find that frustrating to me. On paper, I've lived in Spain, Italy, and Portugal, probably about 6 months each in each of those, and you'd think I should be able to know the languages. But because I keep moving from country to country, I know a lot of words, but I don't know how to string it together into coherent sentences and get that deeper level of understanding from people. And because I keep moving from one to another, I just tune my ears into Portuguese because I'm there for 2 weeks, and I start to hear it and go, I can understand a few words, that's great. And then I'm in Spain. And then I get confused between the two languages, and then I just start to tune my ear into Spanish, and then I'm back in Portugal. And it does frustrate me. It really does. I actually care less and less about what people think of me. I wouldn't say that I thought a lot about what people think about me in the first place, but even less these days. If I need to stretch myself out when I'm waiting for a train or on a train or bus or whatever, I do, and I don't care how stupid I look. If I'm going to sit on a bus for 6 or 12 hours and I need stretching, I'm going to roll over my luggage and do that. If I want to exercise because I feel I haven't, then I know it's going to make my back feel better, I'm going to do that. I don't care how weird it looks. And I've met some crazy people doing that as well. I'll sleep on my luggage waiting for a bus. I'll just curl up on my luggage and fall asleep. I can set up my surroundings on a bus to make my surroundings feel really comfortable very, very quickly and within seconds, and not feel bad about that. Just pull everything out and get going and start doing stuff on the bus, and setting myself around, and that's awesome. I'm very comfortable, much more so on second year in other people's homes. And I've got really used to poking through all their common area cupboards to find the things that I look for quickly, and doing a reconnoitre of where their lights are and how the doors work and all that sort of stuff. I do have to remember though, and it can be a problem, that I need to explain this to my hosts, because they are far less used to having a stranger in their house. And I just go into autopilot sometimes and just start walking through, looking through their kitchen cupboards to say, okay, that's that, and so I can ask them questions. And I've really got to remember to say, oh, look, this is what I do. I hope that's okay, because I need to familiarise myself with everything quickly and to ask you any questions while you're here. And you can see some people's faces going, what's she doing? And I go, oh crap, I forgot to do that. So I do have to, it's so natural to me, I forget that other people aren't used to that. I'm actually much less diligent about hygiene than I used to be. But there's some things that are still really, really important to me, and if anything, I've got far more picky about those. I'll wear the same clothes now 2 or 3 days in a row when I really didn't feel comfortable doing that. I'm from such a hot, sweaty climate in Brisbane that we're very used to only wearing things once. But over here, it's much cooler, and as long as I don't smell bad, I'll just rewear them. I can't tell you how much food that I've dropped on the floor, and it's the only food I've got. There's no way in this world I'm going to starve, so I pick it up and eat it. My hands can be dirty from spending all night on public buses and transport, and there's no access to a toilet to wash my hands before I eat. Hey, it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. I'm sitting there and eating. And especially on the buses, when you've got some of the buses, their toilets are not necessarily hygienically clean and their water doesn't work, and you don't really have a choice. it doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. Um, and some places I was in, surprisingly in France, I was really surprised. Public toilets, beautiful, lovely public toilets with no hand basin to wash your hands afterwards. You just got to accept that sometimes you can't do it. So that's that's the way it is. But on the other hand, if I come into a sit where the place is dirtier than I would like, especially it's mainly those hygiene areas, the kitchen and bathroom, that I struggle with. And I used to kind of go, well, it's not my job actually to clean their house, and so I'd put up with it a lot. Now I just get in and scrub it clean to what I feel is best the day that I arrive, sometimes while the onus is still there, just because I want to live in it in a way that I'm comfortable with the whole time that I'm there, and yeah, that's just what I need to be comfortable there. So I am quite picky over that. I don't walk around and eat while I'm walking as much as I used to. It's just not the culture in Southern Europe. Um, they do sit and eat lunch, usually with friends. They'll go to restaurants or cafes and or at home, and they sit around the family table and they eat lunch and they have siesta and all of that sort of stuff. You just don't, it's very rare to see someone grabbing a burger of chips and walking down the street eating it like we do in Australia. We, grab McDonald's and keep walking. Or we run down from in our lunch break from work and we grab a sandwich and we're eating it on the way back to our desk or eating it at our desk. And it's just not done that much here. Um, so I just don't do it as much either. I do on occasion. But I'm also just not rushing to fit everything in on sightseeing days either. When I am in a rush, I will eat on the run because I want to fit in a big day of seeing a particular town, but that doesn't even happen so regularly. I much prefer to use that as part of my touristy day, to do what the locals do in that town and sit in a park or sit somewhere where everybody's sitting and enjoy my lunch and people watch, and have part of that as my touristy day. Um, Another big change is that bus travel really doesn't feel like I'm going on a big trip now. I've used buses so much, much more than trains and planes. And it's almost like you would just walk down to the local public transport bus to go to work. And I just feel like that. It's just that I happen to throw a suitcase in it as well, and I barely give it a second thought. And I tend to know how the bus stations work in the areas that I've been. Obviously, if I go to a new town, it's different and I give myself more time. But in places like Spain and Portugal, I know they're normally on time. I can get there 5 to 10 minutes beforehand, throw everything on, know the routine, have everything done quickly, and I'm not sitting there 45 minutes beforehand checking to make sure I'm there on time like I used to. It just feels like I'm kind of doing a daily trip to work now, except I don't do it every day. And I've got used to dealing with how the Wi-Fi works. The grumpy drivers sometimes are usually great. How much food I need, what timing I need to go. So as long as I'm there within 5 minutes of the trip, I'm cool, I'm relaxed, it's all good. I'm also much more relaxed about the security of my luggage travelling. I still take care, I still padlock my bags that have the important things in there. I still have a system for where all my important things go, so I make sure I don't forget anything. In 2 years of travelling, I forgot my purse at one pet sit once. It's the only thing I've ever forgotten in 2 years of travelling. I've never left anything behind.